What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.
Podcasting is just kind of a word for something you put out on your self-produced content, I guess. Audio, video. There's no real rules. You can edit it many different ways. You can go live to tape. You can record live in front of an audience. You can go in depth with editing. You know, you could do like a professional. You can go anywhere from NPR and Sword and Scale to stuff that's more like Wayne's World, like The Broken, Dignation, Inspired Disorder podcast. There's a lot of different ways to make a podcast, but it's hard to stick with it because podcasts usually, people try to rack up numbers, maybe not intentionally, but that's kind of the goal to kind of do. For some people, they want it to be a job, right? And if you want it to be a job, then you have to treat it like a job. You have to be consistent. You have to be the all-star employee that you wish you could afford to have. That's the person you need to be for yourself, right? You need to make sure you're consistent with when you release your podcast. You need to be consistent with how you record your podcast, with how you produce your podcast. I'm not saying don't take chances. I'm not saying don't experiment. You definitely want to do that. That's the advantage of not having any rules. You can do whatever the fuck you want to do. Like if all of a sudden you want to do a musical episode where everybody just sings, you can do that. There's no rules that say you can't do that. You can do it. You can chop up, edit a conversation in a way that Tarantino's the whole fucking episode. You can do that. You do whatever you want. You're making whatever content in whatever way. If you want bad audio, get bad audio. Maybe the audio is rough for a reason. Maybe you're doing a fictional podcast where you're doing, a story that you wrote with a buddy and you're playing out characters and you want sound effects. You do Foley. You do all your, like it's anything you want to do, right? But once you figure out what you want to do, like this is my show, right? I want to do it weekly. Right? I want it to come out on this day. I want it to come out on this time. And then set that schedule. Make sure you have that schedule. Because that's what everybody loves. I mean, maybe less now with the age of streaming and binging and everything, but at least for people my age, older than millennial, like people that remember TV with channels and schedules, a TV guide, right? A channel guide where you had to be sitting in front of your TV at a specific time of day on a certain channel to be able to see a show when it just starts and stops live. You can't pause it. You got to run to the bathroom during the ads, right? You can't skip the ads like YouTube. You can't just watch a little bit. It's like, no, thank you, Downey. I'll move on to the show now. There's none of that. You can do whatever you want. But you got to, like, consistency. It helps. I mean, it just helps with people knowing when you're going to put stuff out. If you have big gaps, it's tough. I mean, yeah, people subscribe and maybe they won't unsubscribe and they'll just notice when your show gets back. But a lot of the times, people that listen to podcasts have jobs. They specifically listen to the same podcast every week. So it's hard. It's a huge thing to get into somebody's rotation, right? So the last thing you want to do is screw that up. You don't want them unsubscribing. You don't want them filling you in the rotation where it's like maybe on Thursdays you got them home from work. They would listen to you on your way home from work on Thursdays, but now you're not doing your podcast this week. So they have to find something else to listen to Thursday on their way home. And maybe they don't go back to your podcast. So consistency helps. Now, explore with everything you want. Maybe you want to explore with different days. You have time. If you're in it for the long haul, think of hundreds of episodes, not just tens of episodes, right? Maybe it takes you 30 episodes to really fine tune what your show's going to be, how you're going to produce it. But while you're experimenting and while you're trying to figure out what your podcast is going to be, once you kind of lock that down and you understand like this works for me, then do that complete through from moment of production, recording, post-production, posting it from top to bottom, go through the whole entire process like you're the all-star employee that you want to hire, right? Do it don't stockpile stuff and then like, oh, I'm going to go back to it and I did some of the editing tonight and I'm going to finish it tomorrow. Try and get it all done in one day, right? Because you should be able to get it done in hours after recording. Like it should not take you long at all. But at first it is because you don't know what you're doing. You don't know what your show's going to be. You're just kind of, maybe you're copying somebody else's format or you have a format of your own. But you're maybe adding things here, taking things away. You're working it. You're molding it. You're figuring it out what works for you. But once you figure out what works for you, like get a scaffolding, you don't have to have the same thing, but have the same skeletal structure so that when you do experiment, everything else flows right into what you're used to doing. And the thing why you have to do it, why I recommend doing it from start to finish, completing it, getting it done. Don't let anything waste. One, build up. It's easy to let things build up and procrastinate, and then you get overwhelmed. It takes no time. I know so many podcasts that just had it took them years to figure out how to get their show turned over and out. But you want to know, to have the confidence when you're going onto a mic to know that show it doesn't have to come out hours after you're done recording. But to have the confidence, like, I know that if I get everything, I can release it in an hour. Now, what I would recommend is make sure you get as fast and as efficient as possible doing all that stuff. That way you don't have to think about it. It's like driving home from work, right? You don't think about the streets you take. You're thinking about other stuff while you're doing it. That's what you want the production to be. You want it to be just effortless, mindless work, right? That way you can let your creative mind work and you can think about other things. And also, while you're doing it, you can make little adjustments. Like, oh, if I do this, it can be a little bit faster. Maybe if I try this, let's see if it's faster. Like, experiment with it. But once you nail it down, and just make small tweaks. Don't overhaul the whole thing. Just make small little tweaks. And once you get that nailed down, once you get the thing and it is like driving home, then you don't worry about production. It's the least of your worries, which tends to be the most kind of boring work, quote unquote boring work. And then you can just focus on the moment you have the microphone in front of you and the words that you're going to say, and you're not thinking about what a bitch it's going to be having to edit, 6 podcasts that you're behind on. Right? So, let's see. Let's see if there's anything else here. Consistent. All-star employee. Yeah. Headphones. I mean, make sure, listen to your thing. If you have tendencies that you don't like, get rid of them. If you want to stick to a certain time, force yourself. Be strict on yourself. Not only be the all-star employee, but also be your own boss. Be hard on that all-star employee. You have to split yourself into two heads here. 3, you got performance, right? When you're on mic, you got production, which is all-star employee, and you got boss. Make sure everything's on track. Man, you got to be that. If you want to, you can hire people if you got money, but if you got money, then you don't need me. But if you're doing this shit from, ground up, from scratch, it's what you do. So those are little words of wisdom for podcasting. It's the holidays, everybody. And as a thank you for listening, watching my show, you can save 50% on everything I sell over at inspireddisorder.com by using coupon code THANKS18. That's the number 18. It expires the end of the year. So throughout the holiday season, every time something comes out, new painting comes out every day, you can save, or all the paintings that are available through the store, save 50% with the coupon code. Enter it in at checkout. You'll get 50% off. New episode of this show comes out every day. Subscribe everywhere podcasts be found. If you want to binge the show, go over to patreon.com/inspireddisorder. Binge the full week in advance. Go to inspireddisorder.com for all of my work. At Ray Taylor for me. Have a great day, everybody. Peace out!